In this video, I'm going to explain you how to reapply for the UK visitor visa by addressing the grounds of refusal. I will also teach you how to find out what the UK visa case officer is trying to tell you through the grounds of refusal, the hidden hints that you need to bear in mind before you reapply. The first one being sudden deposits. Many people think that if they have a job and they have funds in the bank account, and even if they get money in their bank account, like a sudden deposit from any other person, their visa would be approved. Actually, that sudden deposit becomes the key reason for visa refusal. Now, let me explain you with an example. Imagine you are a software engineer drawing a salary of say $1,500 per month, and you have provided last 6 months of bank statements, last 6 months of pay slips, employment contract copy, and everything looks perfect. You've never had rejection. But in the last 28 days, you had a sudden $23,000 credit into your bank account. You did not explain to the visa case officer where this money came from, who paid you, and why they paid you. Now, you could have a perfectly innocent explanation. For example, you had recently got married and your all relatives pulled in the money for you to go and enjoy yourself for a honeymoon holiday. But given this money is from a third party, you did not provide the documentation related to who those people are, why they're paying, and what is the evidence that they've paid, right? So under the UK rules V4.3, when you receive third party income, like they sponsor your trip or partially sponsor, the first one is you must have a genuine, ongoing personal or professional relationship with that person. Second, they must not have been in breach of any immigration rules. If you are taking money from a third party institution, then they must have electronic record keeping. Imagine your family member is paying you money. The way to rectify is when you reapply, you write that I was refused visa on these grounds and I forgot to provide the details of the third party under rule V4.3. I have a genuine ongoing personal relationship. There are 3 people involved who put this $23,000. First is my father who wired $10,000. Second is my father-in-law who wired another $10,000. And third is my sister who wired $3,000. I recently got married and as a present for our wedding, they wired this money. To substantiate this credit transfer, let me provide the proof of their bank statements and a signed declaration confirming that what I have said is actually true. Here is a copy of my wedding card and here is the confirmed message by my father, father-in-law and sister that they have given the money for this. So I have also provided the identification such as a passport copy or a social security card of these 3 people. If you answer like that for that sudden deposit and there is only one ground of refusal, you are in a much better position, because when they say sudden deposit, they are saying that we don't trust you. We don't know where this money is coming from. Now, what is the second ground of refusal? It's very common that people just simply apply in a wrong category of the visa. For example, you have a standard visitor visa. You say you want to go as a tourist, you want to visit London for 10 days and you have money in the bank account and everything is in order. You have passport, pay slips, strong ties to the country, but still visa got refused. The reason was that you applied in a wrong category. Now, this is an easier fix than other complex cases that I handled. So what wrong category could mean is that even though it's a standard visitor visa, you mentioned in the form that you got a relative who lives in the UK. You provided the details, but you yet said you're going on a tourist visa. What you should have selected was family visit visa. If you have a relative and you're not going to stay with them or you don't have good relations with them, say so that even though I have relative in the UK, we do not have coordinated relations, but in the interest of full disclosure, I am going as a tourist because I will not be staying with them. This way, the person who's reading it, he will say, okay, he's been honest. He said, I have someone living there. And therefore, because I'm not going to be relying on their funds or support, I'm not providing any documentation because we don't have good relation. But in the interest of disclosure, I have provided you this clarification. Now, number 3 reason commonly seen is that you provide irrelevant documentation. Irrelevant means that you provided too much documentation that has got nothing to do with the rule that you're trying to prove. Let me explain. The rule V4.2E says that you must have money to pay for the trip without being dependent on the UK public funds. So you have a job, you showed your employment contract copy and you showed your bank statements, but you did not show your pay slips. Now, why pay slips are important is because you show that the money that is written in like the contract value, the salary that is written is gross, which is without any tax deduction. The money that is sitting in the bank account is after tax deduction, but they really don't know if this money is coming from that employer. That gap is filled by the payslip, because on the payslip you will have the name of the employer, you will have the details of the employer, and you will have the gross salary, then the deductions, and then net salary. So if they look at the gross salary and times it by 12, it will add up to the total amount that is listed in the employment contract copy. Then people provide too many statements. Normally for a 6 months visa, I stick to 6 months of bank statements before the application. What people do is sometimes they provide for 12 months. That is a big no. Don't do that. Most commonly seen for refusal is showing weak ties or no ties to the home country. Let me simplify for you. Home ties means under the rule V4.2 appendix for genuine visitor is that you must be able to visit the UK and come back. You need to show that you have a compelling obligation or circumstance that is going to pull you back from the UK after the trip is over. Now, how do you substantiate that? The way to substantiate is that you provide a HR cover letter. If you're a salaried professional, say our annual leaves are say 23 per year. So far I've used up only 4. I intend to use 10 of those annual leaves remaining for the UK trip. Here is the HR approval letter provided and signed on the company letterhead. If you wish to validate, please email the HR person or call the person to validate, and that should be it. Now, there could be some tricky circumstances where your contract is ending. So by the time you come back, your contract would be finished. Now, if you hide and they contact the HR and then they say, well, his contract is ending in 1 month, but you did not disclose, then they would not take it lightly and they would say, you should have disclosed when you had the opportunity, but still you went ahead and applied for the visa without providing us that your contract is ending. That's why you should say, like for example, if your contract is ending, you can say, in the interest of full disclosure, I never meant to mislead you. It was a purely innocent mistake. I have been working for last 14 years. I have not had a break, and I was reaching a stage where I needed some free time and to think through. I have accumulated enough savings as substantiated from my bank account. You can see that, and fixed deposits. I take responsibility for omission of this information, which was completely innocent, that I did not provide you that my contract was ending. It was never meant to deceive you, and I take responsibility for this oversight. So what I would do is make a fresh visitor visa application and address the grounds of refusal. Like they would say, has your visitor visa been refused? Say yes. Here is the reference number, here is the reason, and here is how I remedied it. You need a cover letter and the evidence to prove that. Now, another reason for which is very commonly seen in India or in Pakistan is people use agents who market themselves as experts and saying that they get visas for the people and they show that success rate, and people pay a fortune. What they don't realize is these agents, they forge bank statements, they change the name, date, and the address of the person on the top, and they keep submitting the same bank statements by the same bank to the UK VI for visitor visa. And sometimes innocent clients, applicants don't even know that. Now, when this happened, the UK Home Office would give you a reason that because you have provided a forged bank statement, you've done forgery and you try to use deception to secure the visa, therefore we are banning you for 10 years. So what do you do in such circumstance when you want to reapply? First of all, don't panic and don't rush. Second, if you have got evidence of sending your own bank statement from your email to the agent, that becomes a proof that you wrote to your agent that here are my bank statements that I wanted to submit, and despite doing that, he did not submit my statements. He submitted wrong statements, and I did not intend to deceive, because here is my proof. Because when the UKVI alleges that you used deception allegedly or forgery, then they need to prove that. But if you can substantiate that your inferences is wrong, because here is my proof that I've got money coming in my bank account, I'm salaried employee, I've got no incentive to deceive you or forge you, because I just wanted to make sure that I go through an immigration agent for this application, and he on his own accord did that. I cannot take responsibility for somebody else's work, but I can substantiate as far as my character is concerned. I am a credible person, and I would be most grateful if you could look at this application as a fresh application, looking at the merit of evidence that I provided. Now, another reason why the UK visitor visa application is refused and what you need to do to reapply is you made mistakes when you filled up an application form. For example, you did a typo mistake. For example, your expenses were, say, 25,000 rupees per month, but the expenses are showing 42,000 per month by your bank statements. Then they would say, well, you've given us the wrong picture of your economic circumstances, because what they do is they look at your bank statements, they look at debit and credit. Debit is the money going out, credit is the money coming in. So the money going out, they ask you how much money is available to you to spend each month. What I would recommend is look at your all months expenditures, add them all together and divide it by 12 to get an average spend. And you write it categorically that my monthly expenditure on an average, not exactly on an average, is this. I got this figure by adding all of the amounts per month together and dividing by 12. And this is the amount of money I spend on an average. That is the way to remedy that. So when you took the wrong expenditure, you say that the case officer erred in estimating that my monthly expenditure is 42,000 because that was only for 1 month. But if you look at the entirety of 6 months, if you add them all together and divide it by 6, you will get a lower number, which is exactly what I had filled. This is how you argue based on merit. What I can tell you is, before you reapply, and this is quite common for people who are self-employed, I hear from people from Pakistan and India, is they have variable income. Some months they will have 2 lakhs, 5 lakhs, and in some months they will have $500, $100 income. Now, what do you do if they say that we do not believe that economically stable or consistent, and that's why we are refusing the visa? Well, you have to understand, the person who's refusing a visa is not a lawyer. It is their understanding framework that is given to them to come to this conclusion that you're not economically stable. So here is how I want you to address that ground of economic inconsistency. Say, I am self-employed, I declared that. As you can appreciate that in business, when you work for yourself, the income is variable in nature. It is not consistent. Otherwise, I would have declared salaried person. But I am economically stable. And let me explain you that. Before I reapplied for this UK visitor visa after the refusal, I waited for further 8 months, and the total 8 months of income is X. I divided by 8 to get an average annualized income. So that you know that on an average, even though some months will have high or low income, if you get an average income, this is the bare minimum income I'm getting every month. My monthly expenses are this much, which are also annualized, and then there is a money remaining at the bottom of the month, which is my savings. I have other fixed deposits also, liquid assets such as mutual funds, and they're held in a financial institution that has electronic record keeping. If you add them all together, it means not only I have the funds to go to the UK, spend for 10 days and come back, I will have enough money which will be remaining after I return back from the UK. That is another way of showing that. What else you can show if you're self-employed is try to get customer contracts. Show them the copies of the contracts that you've signed. So therefore, if you're self-employed, I always recommend, if you've done a brand deal with a brand for social media, clearly get that I've done a deal with this and this entity for this amount of period from this date to this date, and I will get this amount of money. And there is an electronic proof of that. The contact number of that person, you can contact them. Before you write such things in the cover letter, always reach out to the customer saying, I'm applying for the UK visitor visa. Unfortunately, it was refused, but I've shown our contract as a proof that I am economically stable and that I have to come back and do the contract for you, as that acts as a strong tie to the home country. Could you please confirm to them that I am earning this money? The client would appreciate that when they get a call from the UK Home Office. This way you show that even though you have variability in your income, you're able to show that actually you have the money. If you provide a documentation like this, the chances are that your visitor visa application would be approved when you reapply. Now, as much as I would like to tell you that you can do it yourself, I would urge you not to take this step lightly, because once you get the first refusal and then the second refusal, it becomes very difficult to come back, because then you lose your credibility, trust, and then there is a perception. It's all about risk assessment. So always look at the factors. If I take this person's expertise and it helps me in improving my profile for reapplication, there is never a guarantee that I will be granted the visa. It is always seen on the balance of probabilities. So always look at that versus applying it yourself. But if it's a fairly simple grounds of refusal that you've not provided a certain documentation or you're applied in a wrong category, then you can do it yourself, just like filling up a standard visitor visa application form. Now, if you do not know how to fill up a standard visitor visa application form, I've created a video for exactly for that. Go into the playlist and watch the video as step by step how to fill up the visitor visa application form. But typically you should be coming to an expert who will guide you the best possible way to strengthen your application and maximize your chances.